leading Skilled Agile Teams. And throughout the next 30 or 40 minutes, Diana will lead the participants through activities to examine the role of trust and team members' engagement. Leaders will practice communicating purpose and expectation for teams and walk away with a brief plan for enabling better outcomes from skilled team, which is nice. Getting out from webinars with a brief plan is what people need nowadays. And we'll include, of course, as always, plenty of time for asking questions so about your own situation. So that's also very interesting, having time so you can share with Diana and with me too. So with no further ado, Diana Larsen, stage is yours.
Right. Thank you, David, and I will start sharing my slides. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy to have you here. I hope you have some note-taking materials, something nearby where you can write down your ideas as you go along through here. You put your questions in the Q&A. But I'll be asking you some thought-provoking questions, and I will expect that you can kind of keep track of what those are, because those will help you when we get to the part where you are beginning to create a plan. And of course, we're also doing a workshop at the end of March, which we're going to tell you more about later, which will go more deeply into all of these things. So, let's see, get that, all right. So first, I want to talk about what do I mean when I say skilled agile teams. I mean, I think we know what leadership is. It means enabling people to do the things they need to do, helping them to see the vision for the future, helping to make environments where people can be motivated to do the work that we need them to do. But when we look at the teams, what are we talking about when we say leading skilled agile teams? And in my mind, that means those teams are fit for the business purposes that we give them, right? The way we want them to serve our customers, the products we want them to build, the infrastructure that they need to work on, whatever our business purpose is for those teams. Skilled agile teams have built fitness for that. They know how to deliver on those things. And so at the Agile Fluency Project, we have a vision that in every organization where they're saying, yes, we do Agile, or yes, we've adopted Agile, it's really done well, meaning all the teams are practicing in a way that they're bringing their skills to meet those business needs. And so that's what we're going to be talking about throughout this webinar this morning. And to do that, I'm going to use the Agile Fluency model as just a framework for thinking it through. Because one of the things that James Shore and I discovered is that Agile does not, in order to be fit for that business purpose, Agile isn't one size fits all. Agile doesn't need to look in exactly the same way in every organization. It needs to have certain elements to it, and we'll be talking about those. But we really want to understand what is the business need that drives putting this team of people together, and then make sure that we're helping to build the fluency for those teams. So what do I mean by fluency? This is always a question. So fluency is, we borrowed this idea from language fluency, but you can be fluent in any kind of skill. And we're talking specifically about the skills that go with technology, the skills that go with building and delivering software, whatever kind of software that might be. So fluency is what those teams are able to do automatically. It is their habit. They do it routinely, smoothly, skillfully, and with ease. That's just how they work, even when they're under pressure. They know that working in this way is always going to give them the best possible outcomes. And so It is just their natural way of working. And how do they get there? They get there through deliberate practice and deliberate practical application of both the skills that they learn and the understanding, the why, the theory behind why they are using those skills, which helps to motivate them to keep learning. So fluency in teams and in organizations is very much based and comes out of as a return on the investment that we make in those teams and team members learning the skills that they need to be fit for the business purpose. So one thing that we start with, and that a question that I want to ask you right from the beginning is, what kind of benefits do you seek? And when we look at our 4 zones of Agile Fluency, we've discovered that there are some ways of thinking about those benefits and things that leaders in organizations are looking for, like the transparency that gives metrics and begins to reduce the risk. What are the things we can look for? What observable metrics can we find that will help us know if our teams are skilled enough in this zone? And then we get the benefit that comes from those skills. So we reduce risk. I'm not going to read the fine print here, but I will let you scan through it. We look at transparency, including in reducing risk. We look at achievement. What kind of performance are we getting? Which means how we're increasing productivity and how we're increasing the return on our investments. And then alignment. How that increases productivity and how it increases employee satisfaction and engagement. Because we have learned that employee engagement, team member engagement, is one of the primary measures of, or the primary factors that causes teams to be successful. So we want to see all of those things happening. And so in each of these zones, you'll notice that the metrics change a little bit. The benefits that we get change a little bit according to the sort of scale or bucket of skilled proficiencies that go along with that zone. So I hope you while I'm rattling on, I hope you're getting the chance to read through these. We look at increase in ROI, increase in productivity in every zone. We look at how we can reduce risk in every zone, and those are the risks that cause threats or hazards. And then how do we increase its satisfaction? And interestingly enough, you'll notice in this last column on the right that for most teams, really every team I've ever worked with, when they are feeling productive and high performing in their zone, they are more engaged and there is more employee satisfaction. And so those things actually go together quite nicely. So these are the first 2 zones, the focusing zone and the delivering zone. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what actually is going on in each of those in a moment, but I want to show you the other 2 zones. We also have the optimizing zone and the strengthening zone. And if you look at the core metrics for each of these, you notice that that we are getting increasingly close to what we call the promise of Agile, and even beyond that. We're beginning to see some differences in the way people work. But there are also some interesting there's some very interesting correlations between what we want and what we are willing to invest in, what trade-offs we're willing to make to get the outcomes that we want. And that's where the real interesting part comes in terms of leading these skilled agile teams. So I hope you've had enough time to kind of read through most of these descriptions of the benefits. So my question now is, at your from just that first bit of look at it, write down in your notes, do you think your organization needs more focusing teams or delivering teams, or maybe some of both? Keep some of the teams that you work with in mind as we go through this. And, these teams, maybe focusing zone is right for them. These other teams in our organization, we really need them to be delivering teams. Oh, these other teams, maybe they're R&D teams. Maybe they're out there creating brand new things for the marketplace. Maybe they are optimizing teams. Do we want to impact not only our teams and products, but our organization and our community? Maybe we need strengthening zone teams. So we're looking at what kinds of teams do we need. And so I want you to think about where you think that is for you right now. And now we're going to dive a little more deeply into this. So the Agile Fluency model, we make sure our aspiration for it, that it is a positive model, that it's telling you what you can get, not what you can't, and that it is inclusive. We do not recommend one methodology over another methodology because the methodology you pick needs to be fit for purpose. And as long as it's fit for purpose, it's the right methodology for you. So whether you're choosing among scaling methods and frameworks, or whether you're choosing among team by team methods and frameworks, it doesn't matter. All of them can be encompassed in these zones. And finally, we wanted a model that promoted improvement, that really helped people get better fit for their purpose in their organization, and help their organization get better outcomes, more improved outcomes for their customers. So those are the sort of the basic things that we thought about when we put this model together. So our zones start with something we call Pre-Agile, and we haven't done a lot of description of it because it's not the place we enjoy working as much. But we know that there are certain circumstances where the work is repeatable, where what we used to call a waterfall or a phase development approach to the work was just fine, where you've got a group of individual contributors and their managers are giving them the tasks that they want them to do. And if that's working just fine for you, then you don't need to think further than that. That is your best fit. The thing is, what we discover in most organizations, that is not working just fine. Software development now is a much more uncertain proposition. We can't always know right in the beginning everything we want to build and how we want all of those things to be built. And so we need to be able to think through, what is that, and what does our customer need, and how do we get there, and those kinds of questions. And our old ways, the pre-agile ways of working, just aren't doing the job. They weren't leading to success in those kinds of situations. So our first shift is from Pre-Agile to the focusing zone. And the focusing zone, as you see here, it shows leaders can see progress from the business perspective, not just from the technical or the component perspective, but from the business perspective. What are the actual impacts of the things that we are doing? And when we discover that our customers need something different than what we had originally thought, we can redirect those teams because they're working in small increments and we don't have so much invested that we can't shift direction if we need to. And then finally, they're always working on the next most valuable thing. Whereas in Pre-Agile, very often teams or individual contributors are working on the next. I used to hear this term a lot. I'm working on this because it's the coolest technology anywhere. Well, that's meaningful to your engineers, but it's not necessarily meaningful to your customers in terms of what they value. So we want these teams that we pull together, we shift to a more collaborative team culture so that it's a group of people managing their work, and they are always working on the next most valuable thing because they have access to a business liaison, which we might call a product owner or a product manager. Different organizations have different titles for that, that helps them to understand the vision for the outcome that we want from them, and then the what is the next most valuable thing they can build in order to get there. In order to move from pre-agile to focusing, there are some investments that the organization needs to make. I mean, to assign people to teams full time. There needs to be a workspace. In the old days, we liked co-located workspaces the best because they were sort of the richest source of communication. But now we also, for most teams, we need to provide a virtual workspace that also fosters very rich communication. They need that business representation to help them understand what is the next most valuable thing. They need coaching to learn to work, to move from being individual contributors to working collaboratively as a team. And they need, and the management needs to shift their way of managing from managing individual contributors to managing a team and managing a work process. Instead of managing individual performance. So those are all investments that need to be made in order to shift into the focusing zone. And they are not trivial. Those are significant investments that need to be made. And we call this Agile Fundamentals. Some of the methodologies that fit well here are Basic Scrum, Kanban. I've run into folks who just said, "Oh, we just go right back to the manifesto and we try to apply all the principles." That is a fundamental way of thinking about Agile, and that can work very well for creating your focusing zone teams. However, not everybody needs that kind of team. Some folks need a team that not only has all of those characteristics, but also can release at will. Their market is more rapidly changing. They need to be more responsive to their market. They need to be able to capture value frequently so that they can keep development going. And they need to see when there are problems so that they can fix them in early when they're small. And in order to do that, they need to get more additional shift from being a team to also now being a team that has very high level engineering skills. And so, and professional skills. Not everybody on these teams necessarily is an engineer. So, or a programmer. So the investment here is in being patient as people learn the technical skills that they need and the professional skills that they need, how to work together, not just with programmers and testers and their product owner, but also with other folks, DevOps and UX folks who might have become part of the team to make this release at will, continuous integration, continuous deployment possible. And so when we're learning those things, there's a little bit of a productivity dip. And so not all of our investments have a dollar sign on them. Some of them have to do with our behavior. We need to invest in different behavior, like, giving people the space to learn what they need to learn, that sort of to accelerate into a faster pace later. Some of the methodologies that we see people using in the delivering zone are extreme programming or the DevOps movement and some of those things. So then there's also that for many folks, actually most teams we run into, either the focusing zone or the delivering zone is the thing that is best fit for their business purpose, but not everyone. Some companies need market disruption. They need faster pace to bringing new things to market initially, and those kinds of things. And so that is, we call the optimizing zone. And that is where the whole team together can make excellent product decisions. So we don't have to wait for handoffs or decisions to come from outside the team. The team has everyone in it that is truly the ultimate of cross-functionality. Everyone is on the team that is needed to make the decisions to get a product out the door that will surprise and delight our customers. And, that helps us be innovative. It helps us sometimes even lead to market disruptions and becoming a market leader. To do that, we need a further shift that is an organizational structure shift. Now we are needing to make sure that every optimizing team has all of the product development support that they need, all of the marketing support that they need. So people are assigned to work differently. And it's much more important that managers and leaders are working across the whole organization to clear the way for these teams to work together well. And so here we are now investing in things like helping these teams understand their markets and giving them the information they need to do that, making sure again that the business expertise is on the team, that the team owns the business and owns that product, and management coaching changes the management skills change again because managers are working more cross-functionally at their level, and they may need some coaching for that. We call that Agile's promise. It's sort of what was described in the early days as being fully Agile. And for these kinds of situations, these kinds of business needs, you do need that optimizing team, but it's not what everyone needs, and we don't all need to invest in it. And then, I went too fast. So our last zone is the strengthening zone. And here is where the teams move from a focus on their products or their services to their customers to include that, and also what is in the best interests of the whole organization. And so they are looking at other kinds of market, whole industry stimulation, and optimizing the cross-organizational value between and among teams and cross-pollinating perspectives. Sometimes we see these kinds of teams are in organizations where they've also got an internal, maybe an incubator, where they're kind of spinning up whole new companies, not only their own company's interests. So here they need to invest in new practices and invest in a cross-organizational focus. And they need to understand things about complexity theory and complex adaptive systems and organization design and alternative governance structures. This is not for large organizations. We see almost no large organizations thinking that this is the best fit, this zone is the best fit for them, because in large organizations, there's just too much communication overhead to really make this possible. But we do see some smaller, more nimble organizations that have teams in this zone. The other thing you'll notice is that the model isn't complete. The model sort of trails off here after strengthening, because we are beginning to see a new zone that's out there. We're not seeing it enough so that we can fully describe it yet. So we haven't added it to the model, but there are other things happening out there that imply further zones of fluency, and we're eagerly looking forward to really discovering what those are. So this is that whole model I just went to. If you would like a copy of this, a PDF of this, please contact us at this agilefluency.org contact.php URL. We will happily send you a PDF of this. I find that it's very useful as a conversation starter with people other leaders in your organization, to say, let's talk about what of these that we need. And this, together with the ebook, can prove very, very powerful. So, and both of those are available for free. The ebook is just up on our website. You can go download it, and it's free. But if you want this graphic, you can contact us and we'll send you the PDF of the graphic. So I'm going to ask my question again. Now that you know more, now that you know about the investments that you'll need to make, Now, do you want delivering? Do you focusing or delivering or optimizing or strengthening? That it once you learn what investments are there and what the trade-offs might be, how difficult it might be to make those investments in your organization, your ideas about what zone you want and who will have the courage to step up and really try to work toward that zone, that becomes a new question. So I hope you're taking some notes for yourself about that. So, does your organization have the will to invest in cultivating the teams it needs for the outcomes it says it wants? And if it doesn't, then what that says is we need to adjust our expectations for outcomes. We cannot expect optimizing zone performance from teams we are only willing to invest in at the focusing zone level. Or if we're not even willing to invest in focusing zone teams, we better learn to be satisfied with the kind of outcomes that we get from pre-agile teams and the slowness and the miscommunications that go on there. So it's all about how, adjusting our expectations and according to the investments that we are willing to make in our teams. So how do we say we are willing to make those investments? How do we cultivate teams that produce the business, that we need? So, take them, write down a couple of keywords. What do you guess we might need to do as leaders to put ourselves in the place where we can lead those skilled agile teams? And this is my starter list. We need that patience. We need patience for learning. Software development work is on beyond knowledge work. It is learning work. Teams are constantly learning, and learning brings with it a learning curve. But we do not get to improvement. We do not get to new ideas. We do not get to innovation without learning. And so learning about our customers, learning about the behavior of our systems, learning about how to work together better as a team, all kinds of dimensions of learning need to be going on. And we need to have some patience for that to happen. We also need to shift to seeing teams as entities, as their own thing. Like we used to see individual contributors, now we need to regard teams in that way. How do I foster the health of this team? How do I foster the skilled proficiency of this whole team? What do they need? What do they need in terms of resources like equipment and access to certain, I don't know, websites or whatever, where they can go and find out new information, learn new information. What does the team need in terms of understanding how to work well together? How do we create that healthy, collaborative, highly skilled team? And then investing in enabling and supporting the behaviors that we want to see in our teams. So creating that investment plan. And what I challenge you to do is, as we're coming to a close in this webinar, is think about, of all those things that we saw, which things are you doing now? Are you already providing team coaching? Are you providing management coaching? Are you already giving the teams team rooms of some either virtual or, well, probably virtual now? What are the things you're currently doing to invest in those skilled teams? And what additional things do you need to do in order to make their skill possible to benefit the organization? And in order to do that, leaders need to be advocating and using the social capital within their organization and with their peers and their bosses to influence in this direction. We need to give these teams what they need to give us what we want, that sort of help us help you in reverse. And then looking for opportunities for system improvements that will benefit all the teams and not just this team or that team one at a time. But there are certain kinds of system improvements that you can do across the board that will help the teams. And then finally, always, always, always thinking about choosing effectiveness over efficiency, and knowing that cutting costs or that is going to have, in certain areas, we need to be very careful about that because it may have an impact on the outcomes that we're looking for. So where do we need to value effectiveness, making sure we can do the things we need to do and do them really well over what seems to be a more efficient way of doing things? And where can we balance those two? So those are all the kinds of leadership behaviors that we will look at, and we'll be diving more deeply into those when we get to the workshop at the end of March. So now let's move into the Ask Me Anything. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and let's hear what kind of questions we've got on deck.
Thank you, Diana. So everybody, feel free to share some questions. Diana already left some of them throughout the presentation. So I believe that you were thinking about your own organization or clients or other situations. So feel free to ask Diana anything.
I know I moved through those things kind of fast.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
Focusing, delivering, optimizing, strengthening. So we have all the zones that Diana mentioned. Where do you identify where you are at this moment or where you want to reach?
Right. The way I like to start is by sharing that model graphic that I said that you can get if you come along, and having conversations with leaders about what do they think they want, what do they need to accomplish their business goals, and then we can go do one of two directions. We have a diagnostic, an online diagnostic that we can create a workshop that we go through with teams that will help them identify for themselves where they are now. And then we can do sort of observational assessments. We can, do assessment in a couple of different ways, but that's what we want to do first. And then when we see where the team is now, then we can compare that to where leaders say we need our teams to be performing here in this zone. And then we can create, that's where the investment plan comes in. Then we create an investment plan together with the team coaches to say, here are the first, second, third steps we're going to do over the next 3 months or over the next 4 months.
To understand where,
and then we continually reiterate through that. And so we're always, we either rerun the diagnostic or we redo some other kind of assessment. We come back, we say, oh, well, they've made progress here, but we still need progress there. What new investments do we want to make to help that happen? And so then it becomes an ongoing process of continuous improvement, continuous learning and improvement throughout.
So Paulo, we have a question from
Paulo Correa has a question, and
sorry, David, do you mind if we leave João Santos first, because he's here with his hands? So I believe I have an option that allows João to talk. Hello, João.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity. As a product manager, sometimes most of the times it's very hard to get the teams with me, because most of the times we don't know what to build.
Yeah.
Every day we are changing something, and for that reason sometimes the team is fuzzy, it's hungry with us. So how do we deal with that And regarding that times, COVID, everything's changing so fast.
Right.
How do we deal with that? Because we love plans, and we know
Right. Right.
that the plans or the roadmaps doesn't mean nothing to, or almost nothing, because we are changing every week our roadmaps. How
Right.
do we deal
Wishful
with that?
thinking.
Right. 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 So, well, I would, as a product development person, as the product manager, I think you can tell the teams that is the reality. We are in a market where the understanding of our customer is constantly changing, and so support them in working in very small bites. Very small stories with just a small amount of value that can accumulate into bigger value that you can release, but so that they don't have so much invested in their system that when you come and say we have to change direction now, they feel like they've just created a lot of waste. That's frustrating for anyone, and that's easy to understand how frustrating that is. But if we're working in smaller increments, we can say, oh, okay, well, we just need to throw away this last small thing, but then we can change direction and use the other thing, everything we've built up until then. And that's not so hard. And it is important that you have the conversation that that's going to be the nature of the work. And that is going to be the requirement for that team to be able to shift gears very quickly, because you're working in a time when things are really unknown, and in an environment where you can't look that far out into the future. Sometimes just acknowledging that that's the reality of the work can make a huge difference, because people come in thinking that they're going to get a list of tasks, particularly if they've just shifted it from being individual contributors. They think they're just going to get a task list. And no, now as a team, they are partners with you in making sure that you're delivering to the customer what they need.
The teams have to embrace that. They have Agile is innovation, is adaptability. So we have to embrace that we are gonna test step by step. Of course, it's easy to see that, okay, I lost a lot of time doing this and I'm going nowhere fast. But we have to look around and see, yeah, but I learned a lot. I did all those steps. I'm already ahead on the market or not. I'm trying to reach there. That in the last 6 months, my vision was completely different. And now, step by step, I'm reaching somewhere that I could be completely wrong after some time. I could see that the market's not reaching that, but I already lost a couple of days or months in the path. So I think it's a mindset shift that has to happen. And like Diana was saying, if people are looking to have like a task list and everything prepared with a Gantt chart and all the dates, well, that's the wrong place. I mean, they have to think completely different. Otherwise, the market and other companies will go ahead and they will eat the company product.
And when you do deliver something to the customer that makes them really happy, that you get good feedback on, make sure the team hears about that.
It's an energizer,
They need those
moments. Yeah, they need those moments. Sometimes even there is some companies that even when they fail and they even throw parties because they failed, and they are happy because they know that path is way long ago. We don't need to spend more time on this because we know that we failed on that. There is no we don't need to invest more on that path because we know that it's not there. So I think people have to shift a little bit how they think about work and about the contribution to the business, and seeing more than just the engineering part and coding part. If you're talking about software development company, for sure, they need to look a little bit more than just executing and more into the users and the solution they are building with quality and what people are looking for in the market. So that's that. But it's not easy, Joe.
Not easy. No.
It's a long journey, and there is no easy solutions.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, it's not easy. So I know it very well that you are always changing, And because we have roadmaps, like a quarter roadmaps, we are just planning our tasks and the roadmap. But because everything is changing so fast, it's always hard to plan. And so every week we are always have now I have a weekly basis plan. And this is, and you are right, we have to speak very with the transparency with the team. Okay, guys, we have to change, and if you have to change, we have to change faster. So keep in mind that changing will be the key word every day in our work.
Right.
Probably.
You know, I've run into teams that have adopted a phrase that to help them with this kind of work, and they say, you know, we are a team that plays basketball, not bowling.
Yeah.
Right. If you think about what goes on with a basketball team while they're on the court, they are constantly having to change. And sometimes having a metaphor like that can also help to energize the team and help them to understand the nature of the work.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, João. So,
thank
Paulo
you. We have
Correia.
another question. Yeah, we have three other questions. I think we can start with Paulo, right? I think it was the first one. Yeah, Paulo Correia. How to guarantee that teams are aligned with the organizational objectives? That's your first question.
Yeah.
And the second one is how to get the teams to accomplish those goals.
So, getting anybody to do anything is like, I don't ever sign on for that. What I can do is find some ways to encourage that behavior that I want. I can't guarantee it. So I just start from there. And I think that, you know, one of the ways to help teams align with business goals is to make sure they know what those goals are and how the thing that they are building is intended to fit within those goals. We do that a lot with team chartering. We talk about that in the Liftoff book. But there are other ways of doing that as well. So just always make sure that the teams understand why they're doing the work that they're doing. I mean, there are all kinds of folks out there, Simon Sinek, other folks, who talk about the importance of understanding the why behind our work. And that's what this question is about. And then when you've communicated that, then you have to be in constant dialogue with the teams. That's why I'm talking about, you know, managing the teamwork process and not trying to manage individuals. Now we are looking at how do we stay in communication with the team so that they can tell us when they're falling out of alignment, or we can sense when they're falling out of alignment and help them readjust. It's much better to readjust when things are just a small deviation has happened than wait until things are, oh my God, they're completely out of alignment. What will we do now? Well, that's a really hard situation. But if we adjust as we go along, that's much easier. And a lot of it has to do with just clarity, staying in communication with the team about what it is you want.
Yeah, totally. There is bringing another topic that we some people follow, which is for example, the OKRs. The OKRs is something that is well known. And if you read the book from John Doerr, he has some interesting cases and story. And the OKRs basically remind, because it brings transparency to the whole team, to your organization. It reminds you every time. They are constant reminders that what the team needs to be doing. And what they are trying to achieve or not, because it's clear through the key results what they are trying to do. So it can be a step to go to use those, but in my opinion, it's just a means to an end. So the most important thing is having a way to keep transparency in the organization, alignment between different departments, top down, bottom up, and from there having the conversations. I think the most important part is the conversation around the objectives, and you reiterate from time to time to see where we are heading to, and if it still makes sense to be there, be working towards that goal. Sometimes in the middle of the journey, we discover that goal doesn't make sense anymore. Market change, we lost some people in the company. There is a pandemic in the world, so we have to be fast to on this. But alignment, yes, it's all about, in my opinion, it's all about transparency and having being rigid on this, having things on the wall, discussing every time and reiterating with the people, not trying to keep the information away from the involved, the stakeholders.
Yeah, in the Liftoff book, we call those, similar to OKRs, we call them mission tests. You know, what are our incremental tests that we're doing as we go along to make sure that we are in alignment with our mission? So, and moving towards successful completion of our mission. So, yeah.
Yeah, and at the same time, when you define an objective for the organization, for a team, you are saying no to other things, which is one of the most important things, which is when you're saying no to this thing, you're just focused, you're reducing your work in progress, and you're focused on what really matters at that time. So having those objectives or these frameworks or these tools, whatever you want to use, there is no, as I was telling to João, there is no silver bullet. There is ways to reach there, and then you have to test it with your teams. But having that aligned and saying no to the rest that doesn't make sense on that time will help you keeping that alignment and sharp.
So,
I hope I helped Paulo. Then we have Bogdana. And
hello, Bogdana. Hello, nice to meet you again.
We have Bogdana, we have Carlos Reis, and we have Peter, we have Angel. Well, coming there.
So I would just want to say here that I am in LinkedIn. I'm not on Facebook, but I am on LinkedIn. And so any of the questions that I notice we're getting close to the end of our time. Any of the questions that we don't get answered today, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just say a note, I was in this webinar and my question didn't get answered, and I'll accept your invitation to connect. And then and you can send me your question there if it doesn't get answered here, and we can communicate that way.
So quickly, Bogdana, how can we apply that model, the Agile Fluency model, within an outsourcing company? Do we need to figure out what our focus is for each client so that we can identify focusing, delivering, optimizing teams we need? Yeah, that's very interesting because that's also one of my questions.
Actually, and we have had some folks work with us in that way. There's a couple of companies right now that are staff augmentation or outsourcing companies or those kinds of things that are looking at, who do they want to assemble for those clients who need focusing teams, and who are they going to put together for those clients who need delivering teams, or so on. And so that requires kind of a deeper dive into really learning about the model, and not just the superficial description I gave today, but really read the article and engage with us at the Agile Fluency Project in another way. But then when you have that understanding, when you feel confident that you can apply the model, you can have this conversation with any leader that you're talking to of any organization to help them figure out what kind of a team they need you to give them, and what the environment for that team is going to be. And then you, as the outsourcer, can then provide them with that team of people or a group of people who can work together as that kind of team. So that's, yes, we have folks doing that now. And so that's entirely okay and achievable, and so on.
Yeah, the thing that I identify here is that if you go to the Kanban world, where you have the maturity model, you have all the based on the 6 practices, you have everything you have to observe, so you can give a check to the next level. There is the transition level, and then there is the level, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 level. Here in this model, it's completely different, right? So you don't have a checklist of saying, okay, this company is here or this team is here. It's more about initiatives that can be done or should be done, and that can help the team reaching another level. But there is no direct transition and action points to go there, right, Diana? There is no easy checklist. Yeah.
Well, it's so the thing about the model that I didn't say is that it is accumulative.
Yeah.
So what we discover is that delivering teams need all the delivering team skills, but they also need the focusing zone skills. And optimizing teams need the optimizing zone skills, but they also need the focusing and delivering skills. So it's aggregating. And so that's why you notice in that model I showed it the period of time to get to, you know, really being well functioning in that zone keeps getting longer and longer and longer because we're adding more skill to those teams. What we want to prevent is businesses getting into the place where they are investing in skills that are beyond what they need, and just make sure that the investments stay focused on only what they need. But, you know, that may be skills that come from more than one zone.
Perfect.
Can we
Thank
answer
you.
one more question?
Yeah, we have the question from Carlos, and we have some comments here between the audience. So the question from Carlos Reis is, can you give examples of your pathway for the optimizing to the strengthening shift? So the last levels.
Yeah, the last level. So like I said, there are very few companies that are that have strengthening zone teams in them. But some of them are like, you will see those companies, their developers, people, representatives of their teams will show up at conferences and will talk about new practices that they have developed in their organization that they are then sharing with the community. Or another thing that we see in strengthening zone is maybe there are maybe it's a small company, they've only got maybe 2 or 3 teams, but and they only have one person who really understands the database interfaces, and that person kind of has to move between teams. You'll see teams say, you know what, we need the database person to do our next thing, but we think they should go to this other team first because your product is closer to getting to market and that will bring value to the organization. So let's have the database person go to them first and then come to us. So they'll make those kind of sacrificial gestures for the good of the whole organization. So those are some of the kinds of things that we see. They're leveling up the entire state of practice, and within the organization, they are savvy enough about the whole organizational needs that they can make some judgment calls that way, and are glad to do so because they know it's going to improve the whole organization.
So should we answer one more question, or should we send the answer? I'm taking notes of all the questions that we have now open, so I can send it to Diana also, and after I can share with all the attendees the answers. But do we have time for one more question? What do you think, or should we continue and?
Well, I'm as long as people can stay with us. I'm concerned that some folks may have only blocked an hour for this, and we're losing folks. So
I see some comments over here. I don't see any other questions right now. There's a comment from Petar to João. There's a comment from Angelo. About what we've been talking about.
So make sure you're checking the chat, everyone on this call.
Go ahead. We have just
there.
last minutes. One thing, Diana, you spoke about the other zone that you're still finding.
The
organizations.
Zone.
The new zone.
Right.
Which kind of behaviors, processes, things you're being finding out?
I guess a shorthand way of talking about that is at some level, I think of the focusing zone folks as thinking mostly about the stories, the next most valuable story. And the delivering zone folks thinking about the next most valuable feature or the next most valuable version release. And the optimizing zone thinking about their product, and the strengthening zone thinking about their organization. One of the things that we see that's beginning to see out there is teams that are focused on the good of the community. Whether the industry or trade community or their local geographic community, and how they can interact with that community to build things that are good for them. And that takes obviously a whole different level of understanding, even beyond the complex systems and alternative governance systems. So we're not seeing a lot of that, but we are seeing it. And so that's what we're going to try to define. And if anybody knows of teams that are working in that way, I'd love to know about it, because we do want to gather more data about that.
Interesting. Yeah. I think it makes totally sense with what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And for sure, we're gonna find projects, non-profit organizations, even very small organization, towards working towards that zone.
Right.
Yeah. Very nice.
Right.
And
So,
even though it's not, we've been talking about software, right? But for what I got, it's not it's not something that we can say, okay, it's just work for that environment. Work for any industry, any organization in different industries can fit into these different zones, right?
Right. So we will dive more deeply into all of these questions at the workshop that is coming up at the end of March. And so I just want to give a reminder about that. We'll be able to answer everybody's questions, all the questions, and we have 2 whole half days to do that. And just to say that the Agile Fluency suite that we work with at our project, at our company, includes the model, but it also includes our online diagnostic, and it also includes something we call the Agile Fluency Improvement Cycle, that really does talk about that iterative way of working with not just with our product, but with the whole organization toward organizational improvement. So you can find out more information on our website. And I just want to thank everybody for showing up. We really appreciate you coming, and we're happy to work with people who want to shift software development organizations toward more predictable success and greater business agility. So please come and check us out there. If you'd like to, if you want to download the ebook, you can do that there. We have a monthly newsletter. We only send out 2 mailings a month. We never send out more, but we have a monthly newsletter that has all of our lots of links to interesting blog posts and things out there on the web that are of interest to Agile coaches and consultants. And then we also have a calendar of events so that you can find out about webinars and things that our community knows about, and how to become a licensed facilitator. So just check us out. And thank you.
That's great, folks. Grab your tickets. Don't forget, 30 and 31st of March. A lovely workshop with Diana Larsen, and for sure we're gonna get more and more content and more interesting bits about this topic.
So
registration are open.
I just shared the link for the workshop registration in the chat, but tomorrow with the automatic email from Zoom asking for your feedback, you will get the link again. So this is a 2-half-day workshop. This is a huge opportunity. It's something out of the box that you don't find in a normal calendar training company. So you will not get this course anytime, any month. So this is 12 days. Start investing in Agile Teams, learning with someone that has seen everything and knows how to teach you the best ways to invest in your teams. So 12 days, 30 and 31st of March. It's a huge, huge opportunity. Check your email tomorrow and you will see the link there for registration. And if you are joining this webinar and with a group of people from the same company, we can also send you a quote for a private course if you wish to have this workshop on site in your organization. Thank you so much. This is our email for any type of information that you may want to receive, info@agile21.com. Thank you, Diana. It was so good to do everything, all this process with you. David, it was amazing to have you supporting all this moment. And thank you to all our attendees. Hope to see you soon. We have a webinar on the 4th of February about SAFE. So interested? I think so. Go to our LinkedIn page, Agile Thinkers, and you get the link for registration there. So thank you so much. See you soon in our next webinar. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Cheers.